John Solomon is an award-winning investigative journalist. He's an author, digital media entrepreneur, and he serves as Chief Executive Officer and Editor-in-Chief of Just the News. Before founding Just the News, Solomon played key reporting and executive roles at some of America's most important journalism institutions, such as the Associated Press, the Washington Post, the Washington Times, Newsweek, Daily Beast, and The Hill. Now, I've followed John for years. I believe he is America's #1 investigative reporter. In fact, he was instrumental in informing America about Hunter Biden's corruption. He's likely President Trump's favorite journalist, and he has a plan to remake media in America so we will all be informed, entertained, and enlightened once again. Welcome, John, to the Economic War Room.
Wow, it's great to be with you, Kevin. What you do every day to educate the American public about the new economy we're entering into is such a great public service. It's a great honor to be on your show. It really is.
Well, you're very kind. So what we try to do here is a bad, good, beautiful approach. It's the opposite of Clint Eastwood. He did the good, bad, ugly. We do the bad, good, beautiful. So let's start with the obvious question. What's wrong with media today?
Yeah, I think three things happened over the last 30 years. The first is the core models that funded journalism for years. Classified ads, well, they got taken up by the internet. Traditional advertising got taken up by the internet. When social media became so powerful an audience, advertisers flocked to social media and they left the news media behind. So the first thing is their business model began to erode and they did not adapt. So it's the classic Darwinian moment. When your business model rolls, you either adapt to the new marketplace or you shrink. And as they shrunk, journalist organizations began to fall into two bad habits. And I think the first is they chased clicks because a click meant at least you'd get maybe a little bit more revenue. And the effort to chase clicks grew the temptation to be first rather than right, and to be biased and provocative rather than to be neutral and allow the American people to make up their own minds, because your original role is just to give people facts, let them make up their minds. But the chase of clicks made people want to become more provocative to make sure they got that click. That began to erode the neutrality of the industry. And then the third part is that social media also did something that in my generation of reporters when I started, you didn't do. If I ever expressed an opinion in the 1980s newsroom of the Associated Press, I would have been walked out the door. I mean, even if it wasn't in a story, if I did it in the newsroom, they would have fired myself and walked me out of the office, because of that generation of journalists, whatever our personal views were, we didn't bring them in the second we crossed the threshold to the newsroom. Social media gave journalists their own voice independent of their news organizations. And all of a sudden, journalists became their own media stars, and then they became their own interpreters. And then over time, they adapted into, we're smarter than you, so we're going to tell you Americans what to think. And those three dynamics took an industry that generally you could count on to get accurate information, and now you got an incredibly amount of inaccurate information and often biased, and the American people became frustrated, and the cycle began.
You know, I remember when Rush Limbaugh entered the scene, because all of a sudden I was able to get opinions that I could agree with.
Right.
But it seemed like at that point, the other side, the left, progressive left especially, decided they had to silence those opinions and work very diligently to do that. The Fairness Act and that sort of thing.
Sure.
What happened there when talk radio emerged?
Well, when you look at the Reagan era rise of conservatism, which is the modern start point of modern conservatism, at the beginning, the conservative movement had the upper hand in communications, owning the narrative in America. How did they do that? Richard Viguerie would send an email newsletter, a newsletter to your mailbox. Now, he raised a lot of money with it, but he was also sending an important message of conservatism in the privacy of your mailbox. Democrats never matched that. When talk radio began, liberals could never match what the Rush Limbaughs and the Sean Hannitys and others did. And so conservatives owned that era of communication. And then Fox News became the dominant news network in America. And again, the Democrats could not compete. MSNBC and all the knockoffs, the Huffington Post, they still didn't have the breadth of reach and influence that a Fox News had.